Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission here is pretty simple. We take a huge stack of sources and we distill them down into the insights you really need to be well informed.
And today, we are diving deep into the life of a figure who hasn't just shaped modern entertainment.
I mean, he completely redefined it.
He did, but he's also aggressively reshaped business culture, philanthropy, and even public education policy. We're talking about Wilmot Reed Hastings Jr.
Right. Most of us, we hear that name and we immediately think Netflix. The guy who killed Blockbuster. The guy who brought in the whole streaming era.
Exactly, but the documents we've synthesized today, they reveal a much more complex figure. His entire professional life is really defined by disrupting systems, not just once, but over and over again in completely different fields.
So we're looking beyond the streaming giant today. We want to understand the man's philosophy, really trace how his early experiences and some of his, frankly, big professional failures.
Oh, absolutely. Those failures are key.
How they informed his relentless pursuit of, well, efficiency in every structure he touched.
We've got a really comprehensive compilation of material here. It covers his entire career, his evolution from, a pure engineer to this culture architect, and his surprisingly aggressive history in philanthropy and political activism.
So we're not just confirming the headlines. We're trying to understand the why behind these huge moves. We're connecting the dots between this, high-stakes corporate culture he built and the massive private influence he now has over public life.
Okay, so to ground us, let's just quickly run through the core identity snapshot. He was born in Boston, October 8th, 1960. He's a billionaire businessman and a major education philanthropist.
And his current title is Chairman of Netflix, Inc. He stepped down as CEO in 2023.
Right, and as of May 2025, we're looking at a net worth estimated around $6.6 billion. That wealth is the lever, but, it's his philosophy that really matters here.
Okay, so let's unpack this, Act 1. The formative years and unexpected paths. And the story starts in Boston, but it's the family context that gives us our first real clue about his disruptive nature.
It really does. So his mother, Joan Amory Loomis, she came from what's known as a Boston Brahmin family.
Which, for anyone listening, that's not just about money, right?
No, not at all. It signifies this really deep-seated lineage of Protestant, highly established upper-class families. They basically dominated New England's social and economic life for generations. They were the establishment.
So a world steeped in tradition, in expectation. But the sources say his mother actively pushed against that.
She did. She taught her children to, and this is the word used, disdain that very world of high society she found so repulsive. So that's a crucial early lesson right there.
A rejection of just sort of stuffy, unearned social structures.
Exactly. At the same time, you have his father, Wilmot Reed Hastings Sr., who was an attorney, and he worked inside the federal government for the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare during the Nixon administration.
So that's a really powerful mix. You've got this connection to the high-level establishment on both sides, law and old society, but this internal family culture of nonconformity.
Right. And he attended the exclusive Buckingham Browne and Nichols School in Cambridge, so he got that rigorous, structured academic background. But then there's an immediate detour.
The famous gap year.
Yes. Before college, he takes a year off, which was much less common back then, and he sells vacuum cleaners door to door.
That's not just a quirky detail, is it?
Right.
It's immersion in a world of just constant rejection.
It's immediate, brutal feedback. You learn resilience, you learn how to read people in seconds, and you learn how to handle dozens and dozens of rejections for every single success.
I mean, if you can handle a door slamming in your face 50 times a day,
then starting a business probably doesn't seem quite so scary. It instills this foundational grit.
After that, he moves into higher education. He graduates from Bowdoin College in '83 with a bachelor's in mathematics, a very rigorous analytical focus.
And he has a really enduring connection to Bowdoin. The sources say he calls it beautiful and engaging and remains deeply involved. And as we'll see, that engagement turns into major financial commitments decades later.
But his path to his master's degree, that has a really telling detail about his resilience.
It does. He eventually gets his master's in computer science from Stanford in 1988. But what the sources highlight is that Stanford wasn't his first choice.
He was rejected by MIT.
Right, and that's such an important piece of context. Even these figures who, completely revolutionize industries, they face significant doors slamming shut early on. The key is that ability to pivot, to immediately find the next path.
And the most profound pivot in this whole first act happens right after college. This this detour into service, which surprisingly starts with the military.
Yeah, and he was serious about it. He joined the Marine Corps officer training, the platoon leader class. He spent his college summers in the Marines, including boot camp at Quantico in 1981.
I mean, that is an incredibly structured, demanding environment.
Designed to build extreme leadership capabilities. And yet, he makes this hard pivot away from it. He doesn't commission into the Marines. He chooses the Peace Corps instead.
Why? What was the reasoning?
He termed it a combination of service and adventure. And notice that phrasing. It wasn't just about altruism. It was a deliberate search for an experience that would push his personal boundary.
Connects right back to that vacuum cleaner sales grip.
Absolutely. And so he spends 2 years, from 83 to 85, teaching math at a high school with about 800 students in rural northwest Swaziland. We're talking a high-risk, low-infrastructure environment that demands constant improvisation.
And the sources are very clear that this experience was foundational for him.
It was. It cultivated his entrepreneurial spirit more than any business school ever could have. It completely redefined his relationship with risk.
And there's that one quote that just sums it all up.
It's a great one. He stated, "Once you have hitchhiked across Africa with $10 in your pocket, starting a business doesn't seem too intimidating."
That's just a staggering thought. The entire risk of a startup, burning through VC money, fear of competition, all of it just pales in comparison to the existential uncertainty of surviving with minimal resources.
Right. If you can optimize your life to succeed there, you can certainly optimize a software company in Silicon Valley. It creates this almost bulletproof confidence. If something breaks, you don't panic, you just improvise.
And that resilience, built completely outside any traditional corporate structure, seems like the intellectual starting point for the high autonomy culture he'd later build at Netflix.
It absolutely is. And that high tolerance for risk and chaos perfectly sets the stage for Act Two, founding Pure Software and learning from failure.
So he enters the tech world after Stanford.
His first job is at a place called Adaptive Technology. He's creating a tool for debugging software. Pretty standard, highly technical work, but the critical lesson he learned there wasn't technical.
It was strategic.
It was strategic, and it came from his interactions with the CEO at the time, a woman named Audrey McLean.
Then what was the big takeaway from her?
The absolute necessity of focus. Hastings learned from her that, and I'm quoting here, "It is better to do one product well than two products in a mediocre way."
Ruthless prioritization. That's the optimization principle that guides everything else.
Yes. So, armed with that lesson, and maybe a little too much confidence from his Swaziland days, he founded Pure Software in 1991.
Which focused on troubleshooting software. The company grows fast, but that speed becomes a crisis for him.
It was the classic engineer-CEO mismatch. He knew the software inside and out, but the rapid headcount growth, it just exposed this profound weakness in his ability to manage and scale an organization.
And he admitted it himself.
He did. He said his engineering background just hadn't prepared him for the CEO role. He lost confidence and, remarkably, asked the board to replace him as CEO.
That's a huge level of humility, especially in the tech world of the early 90s.
It is. It shows he recognized his own limitations early on. But the saga of Pure Software gets a lot more complicated.
It becomes a pretty messy M&A disaster.
It does. In 1996, Pure Software merges with Atria Software. Now, on paper, the strategy made sense. You combine Pure's bug detection with Atria's more complex development management tools, a comprehensive suite.
But the integration, it failed almost immediately.
It really did. The sources describe it as notoriously difficult. There were huge cultural clashes, especially between the sales forces of the two companies.
They just had different ways of doing things.
Completely different structures, different compensation models. It was so bad that both companies' head salesmen quit shortly after the merger was announced. When your revenue generators walk out the door, you know the foundation is just not stable.
So that synergy they were hoping for just turned into friction and churn. And then this unstable company, Pure Atria, gets acquired.
By Rational Software in 1997. And this is where the market just delivered its final verdict. The announcement of that acquisition triggered a shocking 42% drop in the stock of both companies.
42%. The market basically wiped out nearly half the value overnight.
It was a disaster, a confirmation of that failed integration. Hastings was briefly made chief technical officer, but he left very soon after.
So his first big venture ends with a loss of confidence, organizational collapse, and just massive shareholder value destruction.
And this is the crucial context. It was a spectacular managerial failure, even if you walked away with money. He left the tech world pretty disillusioned. He said that after selling the company, he found himself without a goal.
And that vacuum, that lack of direction, is what directly leads him to the next thing.
Right. He enrolled in the Stanford Graduate School of Education. The failure of pure software didn't make him want to start another company right away. It made him want to understand systemic answers, and he found them in educational governance.
Because he realized that if you get the organizational structure wrong, the entire house just collapses no matter how good your product is.
Exactly. He needed a reliable, scalable system for high performance, the very system he failed to build at Pure Software.
Which brings us directly to Act 3, the Netflix revolution, where he finally implements the management structure that his first company lacked.
In 1997, right after leaving Pure Atria, he co-founds Netflix with Mark Randolph, who, as you mentioned, was a former employee at Pure.
And the initial model wasn't about streaming. It was a pure logistical play against Blockbuster.
It was. It was flat-rate movie rental by mail, and the genius of it was leveraging two emerging technologies at the same time.
First, DVDs.
Right. So much easier to mail than bulky, fragile VHS tapes. That alone just eliminated the primary logistical headache of the old model.
And second, a website.
Which eliminated the overhead of printing paper catalogs and allowed for instant inventory updates and personalized recommendations. A brick-and-mortar store could never compete with that.
But the real disruption was eliminating the late fee. And that's where we get that famous origin story.
Right, the well-polished version. Hastings says he got a $40 late fee for a VHS copy of Apollo 13, felt incredibly guilty, and had this eureka moment.
That the gym subscription model was better. Pay a flat monthly fee for unlimited access.
Exactly. It replaces the guilt of late fees with the convenience of a subscription. It's a perfect narrative.
But the sources give us a really important reality check on that story.
They do. The reality is that Randolph, the co-founder, later confirmed that Hastings just invented that anecdote.
So it was a marketing story.
It was a marketing fable. It was designed to clearly and succinctly explain their business model to investors, to employees, to the public. It was optimization applied to PR.
That's fascinating. It shows he understood you don't just need a better system, you need a better, more emotionally resonant story about why the old system is broken.
And it was so effective that Blockbuster reportedly demanded he stop telling the story because they couldn't find the transaction in their records, which of course only added to the legend.
So the mail-in model is a huge success. But Hastings already saw that it wasn't the final destination.
No, he saw it as a bridge. He was a huge proponent of internet television, arguing it was the inevitable future, and he was willing to take another huge calculated risk.
And the sources point to a specific trigger for this pivot to streaming.
He credits YouTube. The explosion of user-generated, easily accessible video online showed him that the infrastructure, the bandwidth, the consumer behavior, it was finally ready for prime time.
So Netflix launched its streaming service to computers in 2007.
And this was a move made while the DVD by mail business was still booming. It shows a real willingness to cannibalize your own successful model to get to the future first.
Okay, let's dive into the organizational structure that powered all this. The freedom and responsibility culture. This is the system he designed specifically to avoid the failures of pure software.
And this culture is maybe his most enduring and definitely his most controversial legacy. It is explicitly designed around autonomy and an expectation of extreme high performance.
So let's talk about the mechanics. How did he enforce this high-performance culture?
Well, it really comes down to what's often called the keeper test. The philosophy is just brutal optimization. Netflix reportedly offers extremely generous severance packages to employees who are simply adequate.
Not poor performers, just adequate.
Just adequate or mediocre. The goal isn't just to have high performance, it's to maintain a consistently innovative environment. So if you're not contributing at an outstanding level, you're paid very well to leave, which makes room for someone who will.
I have to imagine that this kind of constant pressure must lead to burnout. It seems to sacrifice traditional loyalty.
That is the central trade-off. The system sacrifices that kind of loyalty for radical honesty and efficiency. The argument is that the company must be excellent to survive constant disruption, and so loyalty to adequate performance is actually a liability.
And the severance is the lubricant that makes that hard truth work.
That's a good way to put it. And this commitment to autonomy went all the way down to basic HR functions like time off.
Right. They famously got rid of tracking for sick and vacation time.
Absolutely. The principle is we hire fully formed adults. If your results are outstanding, we don't care when you take a vacation. But if your results start to slip, The problem isn't your vacation time.
It's your performance.
Yeah.
And that's when the keep or test conversation starts.
Precisely. And this entire philosophy was eventually codified into one of the most famous internal documents in modern business.
The culture guide.
Yes. Hastings developed it through deep discussions with employees, and then he posted it publicly online in August 2009. It wasn't just for internal use, it was a transparency tool.
And what was the practical effect of making that public?
It became a brilliant, if indirect, pre-employment screening tool. The goal was to actively dissuade people who weren't a good fit from even applying. If you read the deck and you disagree with its tenets, you self-select out. It optimized the hiring funnel.
This all culminated in the book he co-authored in 2020, No Rules Rules, Netflix and the Culture of Reinvention.
Right, with Aaron Meyer. And it became a huge bestseller, shortlisted for the Financial Times Business Book of the Year. It shows that his management philosophy isn't just some internal quirk, it's considered a serious, if very controversial, model for modern business.
While he was doing all this, he was also embedding himself in the wider tech ecosystem through corporate boards.
Yeah, he was a key link between the major players. He was on the board of Microsoft from 2007 to 2012, then Facebook from 2011 to 2019.
And more recently, Bloomberg in 2023, and then the AI company Anthropic in 2025.
That move to Anthropic is really telling. It shows a continued focus on the most disruptive technology emerging right now. But he also applied the same mindset to a very different kind of asset, a ski resort in Utah.
The Powder Mountain investment in 2023.
It's a perfect case study. He becomes the majority owner after a massive $100 million investment.
And, true to form, he's not there to just maintain the status quo.
Not at all. He immediately announced plans to convert half of the mountain into a members-only ski club, along with new, exclusive residential developments.
So he's taking a publicly accessible amenity and creating a private, optimized, high-value access model.
It's the exact same playbook as Netflix.
Yeah.
Shifting from broad, non-exclusive access to a premium exclusive experience, all driven by capital deployment.
It really shows how portable his mindset is. So let's circle back to what happened right after that pure software failure and get into Act 4, the deep dive into education activism.
This is such a crucial pivot. He failed at high-growth management, and so he sought a new structural goal. As we said, he enrolled in the Stanford Graduate School of Education to understand and fix the machinery of public systems. His new mission became California educational reform.
And he didn't waste any time. He was appointed to the California State Board of Education in 2000 and became its president in 2001.
And his first massive act was deploying his own wealth to influence public policy, specifically with Proposition 39 in November of 2000.
And this was a serious investment, $1 million of his own money, plus $6 million from the VC John Doerr. So a $7 million political play. What did Prop 39 actually do?
It was a mechanical reform. It focused on school infrastructure funding. It lowered the voter approval threshold for local schools to pass construction bond measures from a supermajority of 66% down to 55%.
And why is that difference from 2/3 to just over half so significant?
It fundamentally changes the political calculation. Getting a 2/3 majority is really hard. It requires broad consensus. By lowering it to 55%, it becomes much, much easier for districts to pass these massive bonding measures, even if a significant number of voters are against it.
So for him, it was optimization, cutting through what he probably saw as voter friction to get things done faster.
Exactly. He was using private capital to alter the democratic machinery itself. But his time on the board was defined by intense political conflict.
The conflict was over curriculum, right? Specifically for non-English speaking students.
It was. Democratic legislators really opposed his push for more English instruction and standardized language testing. He was just at odds with powerful political factions in Sacramento.
And how did that political fight end?
It was a structural block. Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, a Republican, had reappointed him. But the California Senate Rules Committee, controlled by the other party, had to confirm it. In 2005, they just refused.
So it wasn't just disagreement, it was a political rejection.
Exactly. His first big foray into public service ended the same way his first company did. He ran into institutional friction and was forced out. He learned that public systems resist optimization much more fiercely than business systems.
And that experience seems to have driven him toward a model that he found much more efficient. Charter schools.
That became his core cause. He's one of the most aggressive and well-funded advocates for charter schools, publicly funded but privately run. For him, they're the educational equivalent of the Netflix culture.
Highly autonomous, results-driven.
And free from the bureaucratic inertia of traditional public school systems. And he put his money where his mouth was, locally.
He donated $1 million in 2006 to open new charter schools in Santa Cruz County, where he lives.
Right. A strategic investment to scale the model in his own backyard.
And this commitment to efficiency leads to his most controversial opinion on governance that we found in the sources.
It's a really radical view. In March 2014, he openly argued for the complete elimination of elected school boards.
Wow. Not reform, elimination.
Complete elimination. And this is a critical insight. He believes that the periodic, often chaotic, consensus-driven nature of local democracy is fundamentally incompatible with achieving the best, most optimized educational outcomes.
So he's essentially arguing for a shift away from direct local democracy toward a more centralized, professional, maybe expert-driven structure, one that's more open to private philanthropy.
I think that's a fair reading. And this philosophy is the foundation for his later massive philanthropic work. He joins the Giving Pledge in 2012 and creates the Hastings Fund, pledging $100 million to children's education.
And those first gifts from the fund show a clear focus on equity in higher ed.
They do. The first gifts, totaling $1.5 million, went to the United Negro College Fund and the Hispanic Foundation of Silicon Valley for college scholarships. It established a pattern of strategic philanthropy.
Okay, now we get into Act V, where this philosophy is amplified by just extraordinary wealth.
Yeah.
The scale of capital deployment here for massive impact and political influence is just staggering.
It really is. You see this transition from activist spending to full-on systemic capital deployment. Look at the 2020 donation to historically black colleges and universities.
That was $120 million, split between the UNCF, Morehouse College, and Spelman College.
A landmark move. It was reported as the largest individual donation ever to support scholarships at HBCUs. This isn't just a gesture, it's a strategic investment in the long-term stability of an entire vital sector of American higher education.
He also maintains that connection to his alma mater, Bowdoin.
He does. In 2025, he gave them $50 million to establish the Hastings Initiative for AI and Humanity, the largest gift in the college's history. It signals that he sees AI as the next great disruptive force.
And his philanthropy extends beyond education into global health.
Right. He and his wife donated $30 million to JVI in 2020 to support the COVAX initiative for COVID-19 vaccines. Again, deploying significant capital to optimize a global health challenge.
But maybe the most telling financial move involves his donor-advised fund, his DAF. We should probably unpack what that is.
Sure. A DAA is basically a personal charitable savings account that's housed within a sponsoring organization, like the Silicon Valley Community Foundation. He set his up in 2016 with a $100 million contribution.
And why is this the preferred vehicle for so many billionaires?
Well, it gives you immediate, significant tax advantages when you contribute the money. But, crucially, you retain advisory control over when and where those funds are eventually distributed. It's maximum financial benefit combined with maximum strategic control over the timing of your impact.
And the scale of his DAF grew exponentially just recently.
In 2024, he gifted 2 million of his Netflix shares to the DAI. At the time, they were valued at $1.1 billion.
$1.1 billion.
Yeah. That single transaction, his largest known charitable gift, just underscores his commitment to strategically deploying his wealth.
So now let's turn to his direct political activity. His donations in California seem to track his interests pretty closely.
He was a major player there for years. We saw the $1 million donation for Jack O'Connell's gubernatorial run in 2007, the $250,000 to budget reform now in 2009.
And then, in 2021, a huge sum to defeat the effort to recall Governor Newsom.
A $3 million gift. It shows a long-standing pattern of using capital to influence state government in line with his preferred policies.
But the shift in 2024 to the national stage was a really dramatic break from that pattern.
This is where his disruptive mindset just collided directly with high-stakes national politics. On July 3, 2024, he publicly called on the sitting president, Joe Biden, to withdraw from the presidential election.
Which is an extraordinarily rare thing for a major corporate figure to do.
It's a huge political risk. And the pace of his pivot after that was even more intense. Less than 3 weeks later, he announced his support for Kamala Harris. And he backed it with a multi-million-dollar donation to the Republican Accountability PAC, which was a super PAC supporting her campaign.
And that was his largest donation ever to a single candidate.
The sources confirm it. It was a massive escalation of his personal political investment.
And this very public, very rapid political move had an immediate, measurable impact on the company he founded.
It did. Reports indicated that Netflix cancellations spiked almost immediately after that donation became public. It's a fascinating modern phenomenon, really. The personal politics of a high-profile founder can instantly translate into a market reaction against their company.
His political influence isn't just national either. He engages globally and even hyper-locally.
In 2025, he gave $2 million to support Ukraine in the Russo-Ukrainian war. At the same time, he invested $250,000 in an effort to defeat a specific candidate, Zohran Mamdani, in the New York City mayoral elections, though that local effort was unsuccessful.
So his capital goes wherever he sees a need for intervention, regardless of the scale.
Exactly. And finally, just to circle back, he's also focused on really technical financial regulation. Back in 2004, he wrote a Wall Street Journal op-ed arguing for the expensing of stock options.
Which is all about corporate transparency.
It is. It's about honesty in accounting for the true cost of equity compensation, another system he wanted to optimize.
So what does this all add up to? We've traced this arc from the resiliency gain selling vacuum cleaners and in Swaziland through the crucial failure of pure software, into the radical optimization of Netflix culture, and finally to this aggressive, capital-fueled activism.
The synthesis is pretty clear. The common thread here is this relentless, almost philosophical dedication to disruption in the pursuit of optimization. He is consistently willing to just discard established norms, Blockbuster's late fees, traditional HR, or even elected school boards, if he sees them as inefficient.
His entire career is defined by taking these calculated, systematic risks. Whether it's the personal risk of the Peace Corps, the corporate risk of shifting from DVDs to streaming, or the political risk of making public calls that actually hurt his company's bottom line. He is always seeking to optimize systems.
And that brings us to the final provocative thought we want to leave with you, the listener. It's about this connection between extreme business success and this kind of activist philanthropy. We've shown through the sources that Hastings argues for the elimination of elected school boards,
Suggesting that public democratic governance is just too flawed and inefficient for something as critical as education.
right? But at the same time, he's making multi-million-dollar political donations and gifting these vast sums to causes he champions, which gives him enormous private influence over those very same public domains.
So this raises a really important question. What is this combination of fierce optimization in business, which leads to immense wealth, and this aggressive political spending? What does it suggest about the future role of billionaire founders in shaping public policy?
Especially in these critical areas like education, where he's targeted governance, and now AI, which he's funding at Bowdoin.
When private individuals have this level of influence, and at the same time they're advocating for dismantling established democratic checks and balances in the name of efficiency, it really challenges that traditional separation between corporate strategy and civic life.
So we have to ask ourselves, when the disruptors optimize every facet of our society, from what we watch to how our schools are run, what accountability mechanisms are left, and, maybe more importantly, whose definition of optimized is the one that ultimately wins.
The sources give us the facts. The challenge now is for you to consider the implications of a society where the rule makers are increasingly the rule breakers. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.